that for me is why I do the job that I do, because I believe that defence lawyers, and particularly defence lawyers who work on legal aid, we are the very thin line between the power of the state and somebody's liberty.
Welcome to the People in Legal podcast. This is the Law and Beyond show, and I am your host, Chantal McNaught. In this episode, I sit down with criminal law barrister Emma Moss to talk about all things law as a second career after employment and human resources, as well as what it takes to build resilience in this human-centered industry. You had a really interesting set of careers so far, and would you mind telling some listeners about your journey and what motivated you towards a legal career when you did?
I've always thought I was going to be a lawyer, be that arguing at home with my parents, be it at school with debating and those kinds of competitions. And I grew up on a pretty steady diet in the 80s of things like Boston Legal and LA Law, legal problems that can be solved in a 40-minute program run.
Yes. Gotta love Alan Shaw.
Denny Crane. I am Denny Crane. While I was growing up, I didn't know what kind of law I was going to practice, but I knew at some point in some universe I was going to be a lawyer. I think I realised from a very early age, however, that it was a very human business. So for me, it's been a lifetime of building relationships, building connections with people, learning how people think, trying to understand why people do the things that they do, which was lucky because I had some tragic circumstances in my last year of high school, and in Victoria it was final exams were determinative of where you were going to go to university. As a result, I didn't end up getting my first choice, which was University of Melbourne Law School. So instead of breaking at that point, I bounced and pivoted and made the decision that I was going to do psychology, because for me that was very adjacent to where a law degree could possibly have taken me. Unfortunately, failed statistics twice. Maths, like for many lawyers, just wasn't my bag.
It was one of the many signs.
It was one of the many signs that I was destined eventually for a law career. But I failed stats twice, and then again had to pivot. So for me, it became a psychology degree with a major in human resource management. So to get to my legal career, I was fortunate enough to have a person in my corner. My husband, who had listened to me for a great number of years, had been the cheerleader, always saying, you can do this, you're going to be great at this. And we got to a point not long after my son was born that we were in a position financially and at a sort of career juncture where going back to law school made sense. So that's how I ended up in 2017, starting with Auckland University of Technology in their law school. That too was determinative. I had applied to Auckland University a couple of times for their law program, but at each point I had withdrawn my application. Something for me, something in my gut said this is not the right place for me. And I had a girlfriend who'd had a baby at the same time that I did, and she said, AUT has a law program. For me, that was the light bulb moment. It was like, this feels like me. This feels like the kind of law school I want to go to. It was approachable as a mature student, and I really felt as I was going through the process to enroll that they understood the challenges of mature students, they understood the challenges of working people, and when I went to my first lecture at AUT, it was like, I've come to exactly the right place.
I really love how you bring in that it is about the people. We talk about a lot of the legal universe on this show and on this channel, People in Legal. Yes, there's obviously a legal technology bent to it, but ultimately it's about people, and you need to have those sorts of environments where you can thrive.
Absolutely. It's always been about the gut for me. I know when I'm working with good people because I feel it. I know that I'm doing my best work because I feel it. It's a very intuitive, very gut-driven proposition, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Criminal law is obviously a passion of yours. You have worked both as prosecution and now you're a criminal defence barrister. What gets you up in the morning and sustains your motivation when things get really tough?
As we discussed before, it's a very human business. Criminal law, for me, is we are dealing with people's liberty. The most basic of human rights is the right to freedom and to not be incarcerated. So, look, for the most part, the people that I represent have done the things that the state say that they've done, or that the police or the prosecution allege that they have done. But the flip side of that is that there are situations where charges are withdrawn, charges are amended, charges just disappear because either the state got it wrong or the state hasn't done their job in meeting their burden of proof. That for me is why I do the job that I do, because I believe that defence lawyers, and particularly defence lawyers who work on legal aid, we are the very thin line between the power of the state and somebody's liberty. I recall in the media just this week, in fact, there was a legal aid lawyer, or an advocate who works in the employment space, and she was saying that for her work, she earned $6,000.
Yeah.
It was a case against the IRD, and when she did a request for information, discovered that the IRD had spent $160,000 defending that matter. So legal aid, regardless of what sphere it's in, we do a heck of a good job for very little financial return. We do it because we genuinely believe it's the right thing to do. I have clients who are, regardless of what they've done or what their background is, they are just genuinely likable people. I had a letter this week come into the office where I'd represented a defendant earlier this year, and there was a little bit of an ego stroke because he wrote in his letter, "Hey, you did an awesome job for me before. Can you pick up my case?"
A repeat client in criminal law. We love those.
We love repeat business. But it's so funny. I'll be on the phone with defendants in custody and I'll hear my guy on the phone go, "Oh yeah, Emma Morse. Yeah, the guys have been talking about you." They often don't get a choice as to who represents them. Legal aid is a cab rank system. But really nice to hear that those that I do represent view me favourably, view the service that I provide favourably, and happy to talk amongst their colleagues in a positive way.
And what a testament to the work and passion that you do for people, and that whole access to justice piece, as well as the values of our liberal democracy when it comes to the assumption of innocence until proven guilty and working towards that. Clearly, though, given the area of law and obviously your life experience as well, law requires a lot of resilience. And you're one of the most empathetic and compassionate people that I know. Don't laugh. We donate plasma together, and I was there when Emma got to choose her gift when she made her 100th donation to NZ Blood. So that's clearly a demonstration of just how much you care about the community and the world that you live in. Do you think that empathy and care for people helps with being resilient?
Look, I think that empathy and care as an aspect of resilience is really a double-edged sword. you have too much and you run the risk of burnout, and burnout's a really real risk in the legal industry. People do care and are genuinely concerned about innocent until proven guilty. They care about the conditions in custody. They care about people's access to justice. The risk is that you do care too much, and it burns you out, and you become ineffective and unable to focus on what your core job is. Your core job is to provide sound legal advice, to advocate on behalf of your clients, and do that effectively in a court setting. So while I think, yes, it's really important to care, the balance is about not caring too much. Too much the other side, and not caring makes it a very mechanical, I'm just here to do a job, to do the process, and I don't think that's the right level either. But it's really important as a legal professional to ensure that we check in on ourselves and make sure that we have the right level of care, and that we are able to be resilient in the now and in the future, because there's, as you said, repeat customers. There is a lot of work out there. There is always going to be work for criminal legal aid lawyers.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we have good people who are effective in those roles, caring just enough to deliver the right outcomes.
Do you have any strategies for how to check in with yourself about that balance?
I think that's the benefit of coming to law a little bit later, is that I've already built a community around me. I've built good people who sit in my corner, who can have that conversation and go, hey, Em, you want to have a think about where you're at, and you might just want to reflect on where your head's at and not get too into your own head about things. So those are the things. I do self-care like anybody else. I exercise, I go for walks, I get a semi-regular massage, which my husband is kind enough to book in for me on the regular because I'm too cheap to do it for myself. I spend time with family, I spend time with friends. I think there's a real risk in our industry of self-medicating through drugs or alcohol, and I know that that has been a particular focus of the law fraternity in New Zealand, making sure that people are safe in their practice and not engaging in self-care behaviours, which are actually destructive.
Yeah.
So it's just about ensuring that I've got the right self-care in place. It's taking a breath. It's using the 5-minute breathing app on my phone and just taking a breath and remembering the wider purpose of why I do what I do, and knowing that I need to be healthy and well to do that. So, yeah. But again, I think it's the benefits of being just a little bit older and a little bit wiser, not realizing or not believing that my whole identity is tied up in the job that I do. And also recognizing that I have value outside of the law job. I sit on community law centre boards. I give back to the Law Association of New Zealand through the Next Gen Committee. I mentor as many young people as however many ask me to mentor them.
And people who do random podcasts.
And people who do random podcasts. Yeah, so I think the give back is also really helpful in terms of the sustainability of what we do. We sit in a very privileged position. I am privileged in that I've got multiple degrees. I've had a number of opportunities to go to university. I'm working in a field that I love and value. So the flip side of that privilege is the need to give back and to make sure that this law fraternity or this law industry that I work in is open to everybody who wants to be here and everyone who's passionate about being here. it's about breaking down some of the barriers. I know that you've probably sort of thought about what are the barriers to the law industry before, but for me, as a new lawyer coming in, there are some what seem like insurmountable hurdles to get over just to become a lawyer and just to get into practice. So for me, I very much view part of my give back as making sure that I break down as many of those barriers as I can. I make it easier for mature students to get in. I have whatever conversations need to be had.
You connect people as well. You spend a long time networking with others and introducing, you've made several introductions for me to expand my professional network here in New Zealand too within the legal profession. So yeah, I really love that piece of how the give back is part of the resilience. And the first thing that you identified with your experience having gone through the legal pathway as your next career is to do with the fact that you're not alone, that it's around the structures and supports you have in place of the people. I think that there's a lot of education that has happened over the last 30 years within the legal profession that's very much it's a solitary profession. You've got to be self-reliant, and that potentially there's a little bit too over-reliance on that, and where those destructive self-care behaviours come from. So I think it's really refreshing to get the perspective of the people and the virtuous circle of when you're up, you help raise the boats, and then when you're feeling down, those that you helped raise help raise you back up.
Yeah, and I think that's the only way it's sustainable. You're right, the industry has thrived on solo practitioners and people doing it for themselves. I mean, you look at things like chambers, barristers' chambers, where it's a collective, but it's ultimately a solo endeavour. And I genuinely believe that my motto in life is that you win or you learn, and you can only learn by inviting in all of the other voices. I can't know everything. I can't read everything. I can't look at every decision that comes out of the courts. But what I can do is I can connect people who have particular interests in places, and I can tap into those particular interests and go, hey, I've got a question about this. What I hope is that the time that I've spent building those networks and those connections, there is a give back, and that people are willing. I found for the price of a cup of coffee that most people are willing to share, and that is the law industry that I want to work in. That is the law fraternity that I want to work in, where somebody feels so comfortable about picking up the phone and going, hey, we may not have met, or we may have met briefly, but I've got a question and I think you're the person who might be able to answer that question. And people do that. What a great sort of society to work in if that's the one we've got.
What advice would you give your younger self if you were to embark on this journey again?
I think there are a couple of key bits that I would give myself. The first is that the journey is mine to decide for me alone. There are going to be people in your space who are the naysayers and the doom bringers of any decision that you want to take for yourself. And I think it's really important to remember that I have the power to choose and decide how I'm going to represent out in the world and the decisions that I'm going to make. So that's the first bit. I would remind myself that nobody can take away my power. The second bit would be that it's okay to be different. I think about the cohort of students that I went to high school with. So we're talking, quite some time ago that I was in high school. But most of those kids or adults now, they built lives in the suburbs where their parents lived, and that was the life that they lived. It was not the life that I chose for myself. And while that means that in my difference I may not go to high school reunions, I'm actually perfectly okay with the life that I've chosen for myself, and feel that I've achieved a modicum of success in the path that I've chosen for myself. Secondary to that is that it's sometimes scary to be different. But if people don't do different, we end up doing the same things over and over again. And the reality is that even when you do different and it's scary, the likelihood is that whatever challenge you come across, you're likely to bounce from, you're not going to break from. So it's really just having confidence to give it a try. And lastly, I think I would have owned my space at university more. I went to university and I was one of those annoying, mature students, front row, plenty of questions, always turned my work in on time, got reasonably good results.
Emma Moss, you're such a gunner.
I know. But there were others who took that and then, amplified that 100-fold. They were asking far more questions. They were building deeper and stronger relationships with our lecturers, and they had stellar times at university. They achieved amazing results. They were, those people at the award ceremonies taking these awards at the end of the year. They, they've gone on to careers that I go, that would have been cool. It's not my career, but it's cool for them. So I think I would have just taken that experience at university and been all of myself. I was still relatively reticent going back to university. Again, I think it's potentially a Gen X thing where we're very respectful and there's a distance between those delivering the learning and those kind of taking on the learning. But I would have recognized my right to be there and my right to take up oxygen in that space and bring my whole self to that process. Yeah, I think that's the advice I would give.
So what we do on this show is I've got some conversation cards which I shuffle incredibly terribly because I really wasn't trained to be a croupier, but the idea is that they're shuffled, so Emma Moss here doesn't know what topic that is going to come out of these conversation cards. And here is I was going to say the first one. Here is the conversation topic. What was, and it's you.
It's perfect.
It's perfect for you. What was the last book you've read? Just read.
So hard because I've always got multiple books on the go. So as an example, I'm currently reading Ali Mau's memoir. No words for this. So she is with another lawyer that I know, Zoe Lawton, who has set up Tika, which is the safe space for sexual harassment and sexual violence complaints, I think particularly within the law industry. I'd have to check that. So I'm currently reading her memoir. I am also reading John Krakauer, Up in the Air. So it's about his ill-fated trip to Everest in 1996. So it's a climb that he did in 1996 when he was a journalist for a sports magazine. And it was, I haven't got to the end of it, but I understand that there was quite the tragedy in terms of weather events, and a number of people that died in that expedition season. What did I just finish though?
Would it be on your Goodreads?
It would totally be on my Goodreads. Let me just check that. One moment, please, Paula. Because I'm such a nerd and I keep everything that I read logged so that I can think about it afterwards, or not think about it, as the case might be.
How I appreciate a good system.
Ah, yes, that's what I read. The New Age of Sexism.
Oh, good one.
It was an excellent, if not terrifying, read about the current AI hyperdrive that we as a society are in, and all of the nefarious uses of that technology and the risk or the resultant risk to particularly women and minorities. because the systems are developing at warp speed, typically run, programmed, owned, monetized by men. So it's an exploratory look at things like cyber brothels and AI companions, deepfake pornography. So the challenges around systems that are not set up to support women and actually serve to further marginalize and further push down women. Terrifying, but incredibly important things to be thinking about, particularly as the intersection between the technology and the law is at such a mismatch, where the law is, particularly criminal law, is still running to catch up. Horrific and terrifyingly scary.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Law and Beyond show, please leave a review or a rating, as it helps others find the show. And if you're interested in more of what I do as a PhD researcher researching how lawyers can navigate the conflicts between law as a profession and law as a business, check out my LinkedIn newsletter, The Fully Automated Luxury Lawyer. You can find more people in legal content as well on YouTube or on LinkedIn.